as a wild bird sing. You can hear hunger crying out. A sonic echo that leaves no room for doubt. All the shots bring you back to what it's like. Make a move. Do we do? As the world cries tears in our hands, are we all part of a bigger plan? All the shots bring you back to what it's like. Deepest oceans become petri enough. Empty spaces turn to rust and dust. There's no wonder left for us to love. No warmth or shelter, just satellites above. All the shots bring you back to what it's like. Make a move. Do we do? As the world cries tears in our hands, are we all part of a bigger plan? All the shots bring you back to what it's
The sun is setting, don't trust your hearing. You made a monster, I'm your imposter. Go ahead and wander, but don't trust the water. I'm a member of the deep.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to race meeting number 7 of this, the World Touring Car Series here on RaceSpotTV. My name is Connery Manick and this time around I'm joined by a very special guest, William Chadwick. We are getting ourselves all set here at Belle Isle here in Detroit for our wonderful street racing round here of the championship. And Will, this is going to be a very, very tricky predicament for the majority of these drivers. Not a lot of space to work with out there.
Oh, Belle Isle was one of the first tracks that I ever drove on iRacing, and probably not a good one to start off at because it is incredibly hard. There's lots of bumps everywhere, walls are very close, and we're certain to see a lot of good action here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there's a good couple of choke points as well. So the potential for any safety car, full course caution, whatever you want to call it, is relatively high at this stage if we get ourselves a bit of a problem on the first lap of things. But yeah, getting to this point in the season has been relatively tough for a couple of drivers. Some, of course, better than others. One, namely, Corentin Guinness, who holds a 91-point lead in the Pro Championship coming into today. We'll get on to more of that a little bit later on, but there's the confirmation that we're basically firmly secured in the second half of the season. We had a fantastic round at Imola last time out, but we are here at Detroit Belle Isle on September 22nd for this round. And then, well, in a week's time, we head to the Silverstone International Circuit before hopping back across the pond, going to Road Atlanta. Then we go down under at Mount Panorama. Then we get to our second street circuit of the calendar. That's going to be Circuit Gilles Villeneuve before we have our finale at Fuji Speedway. So we've gotten that first half of the season in the bag here, Will. Second half of the season, well, that's what makes champions. And currently, like I said, Guinness kind of almost attempting to walk away with it, at least in pro standings at the moment.
Yeah, Guinness has got a stranglehold on the field here, really, and he is just that class above the rest almost. You know, he constantly looks to have a 10th on everyone, and he's got loads and loads of experience in these touring cars, and you can really see his prowess and how good he is in this piece of machinery.
Yeah, Ross McFarlane up there for Pure Sims Esports. It's a Pure Sims gaggle towards the very top of the order as well. You got Steen Ledger, who gained 2 spots in the previous, over the course of the previous race day. Jamie Rushworth there in 4th place with Wojciech Savidovic in 5th. He's climbed a good couple of spots from the last couple of weeks of racing as well. Butler in 6th place with Freitas in 7th. Stolzenberg in 8th with Holman and Blackwell rounding out the top 10 in terms of the pro standings. Let's have a look at AM because it is very, very close indeed. Stephen Daly still maintains the AM championship lead on 599 points, but 1 point behind is Benjamin Gregory. That is going to be one that we're going to be paying some close attention to over the next couple of rounds, that's for certain. Stefan Schlacker is definitely not out of it whatsoever in 3rd place as well. But Ben Gregory, he didn't have the most fantastic start to the season in terms of results, but the last couple of weeks have been exemplary from him and just propelled him up the order almost to the very front of it.
Yeah, it's really close in the AM Championship, and that's going to be very, very interesting going into the latter half of this season. Of course, like, if we just repeated the first half, it'd be very, very close going into the final round, which I'm sure everyone hopes for. It's always good to see a very, very tight championship battle, and not to mention the 2 of RaceSpot's very own in that top 10 doing us proud in the AM Championship.
Yep, indeed. And Mark Johnson there in 4th place, Daniel Martin in P5 with Lee Berridge and Dan Blackwell 6th and 7th. Got Malcolm Blake and of course our very own Paul Smith at the very bottom end of the top 10 there in the AM standings. Let's have a look at the team standings though, because this looks relatively close even, because you have the contingent of Pure Sims cars at the very front of the order. They actually do lead the team's championship there by a healthy amount, shall we say. But SimRC Maniti, DKC SimRC Maniti, which is a bit of a mouthful to say on the best of occasions, they're 2nd place, mostly or largely due to the fact that Guinness's points haul is contributing to their total. You got the 2nd Pure Sims team in there as well, Pure Sims SimLab with RD SimSports in 4th, Team PJZ in P5. RD SimSports number 2 and 6th with Semper Racing P7s, Booster Motorsports P8, Joy Sport and Iconium Motorsports will round out the top 10 with regards to the team standings here. But we jump straight into the action then. The drivers just getting themselves their final moment of qualifying over and done with. It is open qualifying here, Will, so these drivers will be able to complete their laps at the very end of this session. So last-ditch attempt as Ross McFarlane heads his way across the line, no improvement.
It's always some sort of a spanner in the works when you have open qualifying, because throughout the time that people spend on iRacing, it's very, very likely that you may not have even done an open qualifying session if you've never done a league, because obviously it's usually lone qualifying, you only get 2 laps. So it brings different variables into it. Also, not only your traffic management, making sure you don't block anyone who's on a fast lap, but also maybe getting yourself a tow in order to get onto pole position. It can really help out potentially.
Yeah, indeed, and we've seen some of the teams sort of work within their units, shall we say, at some circuits to be able to give each other the draft. That was particularly prominent at Phillip Island, where you got the Pure Sims guys working together, you got the SimRC guys working together. That's all to be expected as we see Stolzenberg get his way across the line. Doesn't improve, only just though, remains in 4th place. We've got Wojciech Svidovic, 1:37.358 is his fastest lap time so far. He's getting himself a decent tow from the 2 cars ahead as well, but a little bit of an awkward swap there. There's always, there's ample opportunity to gain time around the circuit, but there's the same amount of opportunity to lose it once the traffic ahead of you just gets themselves in the way somewhat.
Yeah, well, that's one of the skills to open qualifying. It's kind of picking your moment, picking your gap in the traffic, and especially at a street circuit, it's going to be one of the hardest qualifying sessions of the season. Not only the fact that you have to have as much precision as possible, but because every car is going to be so much closer together, and there's so much less room in terms of width of the track in order to get through.
Yeah, cars just winding down though. It seems like pretty much everyone has headed their way across the line to complete their final laps of qualifying. So we'll just jump straight into it. Once those results are available, remember 3 races here today. The grid of the first race is set on this qualifying session, and then we'll have reverse grids later on in the evening. Not just reverse grids, but random reverse grids as well. But here's the starting grid for race 1 with Kieran Harrison on pole position with Corentin Guinness P2. So that is a SimRC 1-2 here at Belle Isle. Fantastic stuff from that team. Ross McFarlane starts in 3rd as your highest placed Pure Sims car, with Konstantin Stolzenberg with a good qualifying performance in the Team PGZ car in 4th place. We've got Wojciech Svidovic starting in 5th with Steen Ledger starting in 6th. Jürgen Frank will start 7th with Jake Blackwell in 8th. Miguel Freitas in P9 with Esteban Rodriguez in P10. Jason Landry will start 11th with Lloyd Crabia in 12th. Further down, you've got Morgan Butler for Pure Sims Development in P13. You've got Jamie Rushworth in 14th with Daniel Martin 15th. Ben Gregory P16 with Nick Clibbin 17th. Pete Newman 18th. Stephen Daly will start 19th with Schlacker in P20. Anders Ankerson in P21 with Fritsch, Berridge and Stevenson rounding out the top 24. Further down, there's a lot of cars to go through. 28 car starting grid here. Michael Blake, Rob Sutherland, Paul Smith and Sam Smith will round out the 28 starters that we have here today. Of course, standing start as always in this series.
Yeah, I do believe we have a few others maybe potentially that didn't manage to set a qualifying lap, like Damien Owen Harris and Nathan Ames, I believe, who haven't managed to get a lap in qualifying, who may or may not be starting. We'll see if that's the thing. Standing starts, these cars do obviously have launch control, but whether they'll be using that, I'm not quite sure what they use, but it's going to be interesting going into turn 1. Not a very long run, and I guess we'll find out what's going to happen shortly when all the cars put up.
Yeah, at times we've seen a pretty wild difference in cars being able to get their way off the line and cars that haven't been able to do so well. So this start relatively crucial. Those that didn't qualify, of course, you mentioned them: Nathan Amis, Damien Harris, Harry Fox, John Roberts, Sean Gardner, Scott Malcolm, taking themselves towards the very back of the starting grid to make 34 starters here today in race meeting number 7 of the World Touring Car Series. We're about to go racing here at Belle Isle, and we are go. It is a fantastic start from Kieran Harrison, able to get away well. Corentin Guinness slotting in right behind his teammate as the Pure Sims car of Ross McFarlane also files in line. It looks like the top 7, 8, 9, even top 10 or so have all gotten themselves single file already. First instance side by side you see is Jamie Rushworth and Morgan Butler. Seems like everyone else been able to get away well. No dramas, at least in the first sector, but into the first heavy braking zone of the lap here through turn 3. You got to be so careful.
Well, yeah, I think Guinet's got a little bit of a better start there, but obviously being a really, really short run down into turn 1, Harrison was able to retain the lead, and they all slot into single file for the time being. Not too much carnage here on the first lap, despite being probably the trickiest circuit of the season to start at. I think we're seeing them come round to the back section of the lap now.
Indeed we are. This is this is basically the main streaming zone on the way down in towards turn 7. Just flick it into there, and then you've got this sort of quite technical middle sector of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to try and file your way through. It's very, very tricky, especially when the cars, their handling has been changed since the last patch. I mean, we've already had a race under our belts to deal with that, but still yet more time needed to get used to them, I would have thought. But very clean first lap, very comfortable first lap from the vast majority of drivers. This is probably, I'm gonna probably tempt fate here, but this is the cleanest first lap that I've ever seen in this series. This is great.
Well, often sometimes exactly what you expect, it will only be the opposite, because obviously going to the tightest track of the season, you would expect potentially it to be the messiest start, but we see someone come to the pit lane. It's Jason Landry seems to have had an issue. Not sure if there's a fast repair available in this series, but that could be what he's going for.
It is available. I have to wonder, potentially is that a jump start penalty? He got stopped in his box, straight back out. Taking a fast repair for a little bit of bumper banging that's going on the start. Here's Jamie Rushworth down in P11 in Pro Class, fighting it out with Morgan Butler. LaGravia also in this train as well, but it seems like there's the two SimLab Pure Sims car that are heading this one up for now. They've got further down the road Esteban Rodriguez, which is another Pure Sims car. So yeah, lots of Pure Sims. No matter where you look at this circuit, there seems to be a Pure Sims car in shot somewhere. Those LaGravia sort of getting out of shape there. Coming onto the back straight, Dan Martin looking relatively close behind.
Well, it's always good to see Pure Sims competing, vast amount of drivers in the lineup. Ooh, what's happening there in the background?
Ooh, Dan Martin had a moment. Who's that in the barriers? Couldn't quite see it. Oh, is that Ben Gregory? It was Ben Gregory. That's important in terms of the AM Championship. Oh, what's happened there? Because we saw Dan Martin go off ahead. That was basically all on his own. Car got unsettled under the brakes.
Ooh, that's massive.
Ooh, Gregory got a little help there. There was a bit of contact from Pete Newman.
It looked a lot larger accident. It looks like, just a little tap round. May get away with it though, because the tyre barriers do tend to be a little bit forgiving on iRacing, but that is not the start that Gregory would have wanted to this race, and hopefully he can gain some of that time back, because obviously it wasn't really his fault, or it didn't seem to be from our perspective. Two
basically unrelated incidents in the same corner here. We've got more side-by-side action going on the live pictures, though. This is towards the back of the order. You've got Dan Martin there. You've got Stephen Daly involved in that as his RD Simsport teammate as well. We've got ourselves, Nick Clibbons, Lee Berridge, Damon Harris, all in this train, all getting themselves involved, absolutely nose to tail. And well, Damon Harris is going to send one down the inside of Berridge, and whoa, Armes was trying to capitalize on that one, and he gets put into the concrete.
That was really close. I'm not sure if we often see that these touring cars tend to have a little bit weaker suspension than some of its counterparts on iRacing, so hopefully there's no damage there for Armes, and you see a flash of light in frustration. What I was going to say earlier is I actually think that the Pure Sims SimLab livery is nicer than the main team, but potentially that is a controversial opinion. I do really like the colours that are on that SimLab livery for Pure Sims.
I gotta say, I think I might have to agree with that one. But maybe it's just a bias towards something different, because seeing the Pure Sims livery, the standard one, around a lot, to see it in a different style is somewhat appealing. But we've got 15 minutes to go here in this race. Everything's been quite calm at the moment. Of course, we saw that incident with Gregory, which has been our main... our biggest accident so far in this race, but everyone else continues to go along well. Nathan Armes still trying to improve positions. He's up 10 spots on the day, I believe, in that number 36 Sim RC machine, and plenty more positions on the cards further down the road as well. Just has to deal with Lee Berridge right ahead of him. He's got Harris and Clibbons starting to pull a gap here, so Armes has to be careful he doesn't get a bit stuck here. Plus, there's the potential for damage on the right-hand side there if he clattered the wall a little bit too hard.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be doing that too often, especially around a street circuit. But yeah, Ames didn't seem to be able to get a qualifying lap in, despite the pace that he showed in practice, being third fastest, I believe, in the practice session, but wasn't able to participate in qualifying or get a lap in for whatever reason. So Ames has definitely got the pace here, but he just needs to take his time and be patient. You know, I believe the highest iRating driver in the field, the iRating ranking system for all of these drivers throughout its official races, a whopping 9,100 now. That is a really, really impressive total.
Yeah, it's incredible. People are, you know, there are very good drivers that are half that. You know, it's pretty crazy, and it's certainly a very big achievement. I remember when Max Bernecker, for example, crossed 10K for the first time. There's Neil Stevenson though, 167 car, having a big problem. Potentially nosing it into the tyre barrier at the end of the back straight here. This seems to have been a trouble spot so far this race, and yeah, just gets the gets the braking all wrong. Locks up the I think it was the right front there. It certainly left a big rubber mark on the ground, and well, front end damage to that car. Not ideal, but certainly survivable.
Yeah, just looked to just get it, just miss his braking point slightly, and just catch the tyre walls at the end that stopped him. But like as I said, the tyre walls do tend to be a little bit forgiving on iRacing, so he'd rather hit that than a solid concrete wall that there is plenty of around Belle here today. But we're looking at the lead battle now. Harrison leads Guinness by about 0.6 of a second. Looks to have a little bit of a hold over Guinness here, does Harrison. And it's actually interesting to see that they're in different cars. Obviously, both Hyundais, but Harrison's in the Elantra, and Guinness is in the newer Veloster, but they both have the same engine, I believe, producing about 350 horsepower.
Yeah, there's a little bit of variation in terms of the car choices over the course of this season. It was the case, of course, that there was Craig Williams, excuse me. It took me a while to figure the names there for some reason, but he was the only driver in the Audi, and you know, he definitely applauded for such a choice, even though the race administrators do try to do their own balanced performance across all of the different makes and models of cars. Sometimes there's only so much you can do. I don't think Craig Williams, even in this race, looking up and down the field, no, he hasn't decided to take part here today, so it seems like we're all Hyundais and well, a couple of Hondas sprinkled in as well.
Yeah, it is interesting to see how the car choice changes, because obviously we see a little replay here. We'll come back to that point in a moment. What's happened? Oh, that is a bit of a strange crash there. Those two have got away relatively unscathed, but just looked to come across the front there, the 99 car did, and nearly continuing into next corner.
Yeah, that's just getting a little bit too close for comfort. You have to remember, we are racing on the internet here, that, you know, and there's always the you know, you can't race each other as closely as you would in real life in a lot of cases, and that was just a case of that there. There was plenty of space, enough space on the left-hand side up against the wall, but not enough space for the iRacing system. It bleeds, and I believe, and well, Marcel Fritsch has decided to pull it down on towards pit lane. These drivers do get themselves one single fast repair in this series, so Fritsch has gotten himself back out there and is continuing to turn laps. Further down, you've got, this is Damien Owen Harris, number 53 car. This is, well, yeah, trying to fight it out potentially with Dan Martin and Pete Newman further down the roads, as they kind of all dropped Stephen Daly from them at the moment.
Well, yeah, we see Damien in the green, the iconic green Maniti livery. Of course, back to Maniti as of recently, but you normally see a big green Maniti machine. That comes into my head, but that's definitely not a big car. I'd actually put that towards rather small Hyundai Veloster. But looking to come through the order here, in 16th place, he's got Dan Martin as the only AM ahead of him, the highest place, leading the AM category. And looking to come back, I think started one of the ones that didn't have a qualifying lap, so made some good progress since the start of this race, and only looking to go a little bit further on. Yeah, 14 places up for Damien.
Yeah, there's certainly been a couple of big movers over the course of this race. Damien Harris is the biggest of them. I'm seeing plus 14 on the day for him, and well, looks to make it plus 15 as he sends it down the inside of Dan Martin, and that is textbook overtake coming out for number 53. So now plus 15 on the day. Next closest to that will be Nathan Armes plus 9, a little bit further back.
Very, very decisive move that. Done all on the brakes, and it was very, very ambitious over the curbs, and it worked out for him. So we love to see a good little send here at Belle Isle. A little bit risky at the street circuit, but it worked out really well for Damien Harris, and he now looks ahead to Pete Newman, who is one of the pro cars that he will be overtaking. I believe, do they do separate point scoring? I apologise for not knowing, but do they do separate point scoring for AM and Pro, or do they score it off the way that it's listed down? Or have I asked you a question now?
it's the same scoring. It's the same scoring. So it's so yeah, it is definitely on the AM drivers to finish as high as they can, no matter if they're pro drivers in the way, so to speak. So
every place matters that's gained. So that was another good place for Damien Harris to gain. And as he goes out after Pete Newman now, close that gap already down to 2 seconds a second. So definitely looks to have a good bit of pace here. Another one that seemed to set a lap in practice but wasn't able to attend in qualifying, very close up to the back as we go around turn number 2, down the straight into turn 3. Can he do it 2 times in a row here at Belle Isle on the 8th lap of our race? He's going to look for it down the inside, really late on the brakes, stops it on the apex. Lovely, lovely manoeuvre.
Yeah, well, Damien Harris, the driver that's making all the overtakes here today, it seems, giving us some entertainment on the cameras. Everything else has been rather stagnant here at Belle Isle. It is indeed, relatively tough to overtake. You wouldn't believe that. We're seeing the amount of moves that Harris has pulled off over the course of this race, but it seems like everyone else is struggling a little bit at the moment. I have to wonder if that will just be isolated to this race, and we'll get a bit more excitement, a few more overtakes in the reverse grid races due to people being out of position, of course.
I think looking across the difference in times that we saw in qualifying, I think once we do switch it around, we could see, especially if we get a large reverse grid, fingers crossed, I think, to see the front guys charging through from the back. But I think it could be a very, very entertaining race. And important not to get into any contacts early on, because it's so easy to damage a car and ruin your race on lap 1 when obviously we've got 20 minutes of racing to make up as many positions as you want to. On board with Jürgen Frank, probably a little bit more down the order than he'd like to be. I believe last week he was 3rd on the grid, last round I should say, not last week, at Imola. So looking to maybe make up some positions here as he's in 6th place, but still a very good position for Jürgen Frank, but of course not too far behind the cars ahead.
Not too far at all, and well, for Jürgen Frank, down P17 in the championship at the moment. He had a big jump of 12 last time around, but this would be some very good points for Frank in this situation. Even finishing 6th place will be helping quite a bit. Wojciech Savidovic down the road, though, in 5th place. He's had a decent run of races over the past couple. Again, he was one of those drivers that was really struggling in the early portions of this season, but has started to find his flow, I get the feeling here, and it's good to see him doing so well, especially someone that's been around for so long in TCR racing circles, or rather touring car circles. It doesn't necessarily specifically have to be TCR, given that we had the Kias and such before.
Yeah, that's a good point. Back in the day when you used to have the Kias as the only touring cars on the service, but obviously onto this new generation of can I call them the world touring cars? I know they're definitely a standardised touring car, not like something that we only get solely in the UK where we get British touring cars. There's also a series dedicated to these TCR cars, which are built to a spec of the maximum of 2-litre engines, always tend to be kind of turbocharged, always kind of 4-cylinder. I'm still not sure whether it's the same engine across all cars or whether it's just they're all very, very similar in philosophy. But we are looking for the battle here for the best of the rest, it would seem, behind Gunes and Harrison, who have absolutely checked out by 5 seconds over the rest of the field. But this little 4-car gaggle could definitely get interesting as we go into the remaining 3 laps of this race. Interesting to see, because I think we're going to see some moves here going into the latter laps.
I think so. Look at how close Savidovic is to the back of Stolzenberg. He's going to gesture towards driver's left-hand side. Going to gain a little bit in the draft here, but I don't think really many of these straights are long enough to get any significant slingshot whatsoever. So that is certainly not helping the overtaking situation here at this circuit. But Savidovic definitely applying the pressure at this stage. He wants to improve 1 spot compared to where he started and potentially get to the front of this train and get himself a podium. That's where Ross McFarlane is at the moment. The drivers at the front, the Kieran Harris and Brendan Guinness, they've basically completely checked out. They're about 4.5 to 5 seconds ahead of this pack at the moment, and no looking back certainly for those drivers. Harrison's been doing very, very well, just keeping his teammate at bay for the moment, and well, that's great considering Guinness has definitely been shown to be the fastest driver this series has to offer, at least this year.
Oh, we see a little touch of the world of Walder for Savidovic. May impact his chances, but I mean, we've still got a couple laps left. As you mentioned, it is really quite impressive from Harrison, because he does look to have the measure over Guinness. Guinness can't really get within closer than 5/10, high 4/10, or maybe we're all being tricked by Guinness. Maybe he's planning a last couple laps dash up to take the victory, but definitely from our perspective at the moment, for Harrison, it looks to be rather under his control, but potentially I've just put the commentator's curse on it.
Yeah, well, the team order. Oh, what's happened there? Lee Berridge, 54 involved. That's Booster Motorsports with RD's.
Oh, that's not what you like to see.
Oh boy, that was not something that the stewards are going to look too kindly upon, I don't think. Didn't quite see who the RD Sensible was there. That's number 64. Ouch. That's Stephen Daly, and that's pretty significant in terms of VAN Championship as well. So Ben Gregory's had a problem, Stephen Daly's had a problem. Both the top cars in AM have had crashes in this race. And, well, yeah, less to be said about the rejoin, the better, I suppose.
Yeah, and potentially some long-lasting damage there towards the end of this race, and that is not what Stephen Daly wanted for his championship hopes. But we're not quite at the crucial point of the season. We're definitely getting closer to it, but like you said, not really what you wanna see happening in the championship. This getting into the later stage, but I'm sure I have plenty of opportunity to make some points back up.
We're on board with John Roberts here, and having a look back in our YouTube chat, I believe this was before the race, because I don't think John's going to get a sneaky one there on the inside of the Team Mad cars, but John put in our YouTube chat and let us know that potentially Stephen Daly might have qualified while having a qualifying ban. So that one's a bit awkward, isn't it? But there we go.
That's why some people haven't qualified, and we've just missed that. That would make more sense, to be honest, for the likes of Ames, who obviously was looking quite quick and didn't look to set a lap in qualifying. So potentially we just missed something there. But that could be the case. Obviously, that's down to the stewards to regulate, and we are definitely not the stewards. So hopefully they'll get that one all resolved behind the scenes. But I do believe we're looking to go on to the last lap here, as Harrison extended his advantage again by about 900ths of a second last time around.
Been a pretty quiet affair at the very front here. Just Harrison and Guinness gapping the rest of the field. Totally expecting anything to happen on this final lap, but I'd like to be surprised. There's the confirmation crossing the line with about 26, 27 seconds left to go. So that's all the confirmation that you need. We're riding on board with Quentin Guinness, the 888 car championship leader here in the pro class. Definitely wouldn't be too hard done by P2. He's had too many P1s over the course of this season already, you'd have to argue. But down in towards 10, number 3. Climbing that curb quite nicely as he tries to track down his teammate, but from 7.5 tenths of a second back, it's not looking at all likely.
Well, for Guinness, I'm sure he's a born winner, wanting to win every time out that he goes for. But it's not a bad thing for him necessarily, because he will still be extending his championship lead, as he is one place ahead of his closest rival, I believe, is Ross McFarlane. So, still extending his championship lead. Gets to give his teammate a win, or I'm sure that's what he'll say to Harrison, even if he didn't. And another 1-2 for Sim RC, who seem to be the dominant force in this TCR class now across the iRacing platform.
Yeah, it's incredible. Are we going to get C3 wide there, or at least potentially signs of it? Here's Paul Smith trying to make some moves further down the order, and he has been successful at that little escapade to try and get past John Roberts, and now Roberts put back in a battle with Sam Smith. So here we go, wheel to wheel through this section. Can get a little bit sketchy. Those walls come up on you very, very quickly, and well, door-to-door contact in the middle of the corner. We've had Kieran Harrison come head his way across the line to take the race win here in race 1, and they're still fighting it out here. Back here for positions outside of the top 20. There's Sam Smith and John Roberts going wheel to wheel down the back straight. Roberts can still come back at him here into the braking zone of turn 7, so don't can him out. But Smith's sort of putting himself in the perfect place, but he's overcooked the corner somewhat. Roberts can come back at him through this little sector. Looks to the inside of turn 8. No overtaking opportunity available there. And it looks like Sam Smith might have this one on lockdown. There's Dan Martin heading his way across the line, I believe, to take the AM class win there. Oh, Sam almost collected the wall there, potentially. Might have had to lift out of it, but no, he's not going to lose too much ground there. Back to John Roberts, but some fantastic fighting there on the final lap. But oh, a little bit of a clatter with the wall. I get the feeling a battle to the line. Whoa, what's happened there? Jason Landry almost getting himself a spot. That was a bit too close for comfort for that Team Mad Machine, wasn't it?
Yeah, it got a bit feisty though on the last lap, didn't it? And I'm sure RaceSpot's very own Paul Smith is absolutely loving that one. Who started the lap in 27th and ended up finishing 25th. So not a bad lap there for Paul. And that is race number 1 just coming to a close. Could have seen some more action. You know, it was quite straightforward at the front, not too much overtaking, but here and there was a bit of drama. And as you see the results right now.
Oh, we're doing results first instead of reverse grid first. That's a change. Kieran Harrison on pole position. Well, not pole position anymore, because it will be a reverse grid. We just don't know what. Kieran Harrison takes the race win with Quentin Kines P2, Ross McFarlane P3 with Stolzenberg P4, Wojciech Savidovic P5 with Jürgen Frank in P6. Steen Ledger, Jake Blackhall, Miguel Freitas and Stefan Rodriguez will round out the top 10. And we will be able to get ourselves the reverse grid spinny wheel of doom up. Well, doom for some drivers, elation for others, I would have thought, as we get that going. We've typically had small reverse grids so far this season for the first half. Let's see if the second half has any change in that department. There goes 22. Is it going to be 17? No, it's going to swing past 17. Another small reverse grid here for race 2. It's going to be 13. So that means that Damien Owen Harris will be starting on pole position. That's a bit of a change, isn't it? Started P30 in race 1. Now we'll start pole for race 2. The rest of the results down to P20, though. That's Jamie Rushworth, Morgan Butler, Damien Owen Harris. He's getting himself a reverse grid pole position. Daniel Martin narrowly missing out on a reverse grid pole in P14 with Pete Newman 15th, Floyd Arabia 16th with Anders Ankerson, Niv Names, Harry Fox, and Nick Clibbons running out the top 20. Then we get ourselves down to the top 30. Michael Blake, Jason Landry, Lee Berridge, Rob Sutherland, Paul Smith, Sam Smith, John Roberts, Scott Malcolm, Sean Gardner, and Ben Gregory. And then the final 34, well, the final of the 34 finishers, Marcel Furch, Neil Stevenson, Stephen Daly, and Stefan Schlacker. It seems like the leaders in AM Championship have kind of been decimated in this race 1. So that's going to be interesting to see their progress through the field in race 2, isn't it?
Well, like you said, another small reverse grid, absolutely perfect for Damien Harris, coming from 30th, getting 17 positions, and he goes straight to pole. I bet he's absolutely loving life right now, starting from pole position for race number 2 today. Really, really close for Dan Martin, nearly got that reverse grid pole. But then there's always a chance going into the last race. You know, it's not the final race of our night here at the Belle Isle Detroit circuit, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to say that Damien Harris is going to get the win, but I don't know what your call would be.
I mean, it's a pretty good option. Who does he have starting up with him? Morgan Butler could be a potent contender as well. Jamie Rush with Esteban Rodriguez up there as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good chance, especially with the pace that we saw from Damien Harris in that first race. If he can convert that to a second race performance as well and try and pull away from the field, as potentially the faster drivers might get stuck, because we saw how difficult it was to overtake here. Not impossible by any means. However, it's a little bit more difficult than at some circuits. So that means that the faster drivers do have a higher chance at getting stuck behind one car, potentially a trainer cars.
Yeah, well, practice times would suggest that maybe we wouldn't see Damien Harris run away with it, but I think he's got faster throughout the course of this race, and I do think he would be my bet. But anything can happen in sim racing and motorsport in general, so who knows what could go on into this second race. It's also going to be interesting to look at the AM battle, because no AM driver has been thrown up the order. You know, it was just missed out for Dan Martin, so Dan Martin's still going to be starting 14th alongside with, I think, Harry Fox will be the closest near him in AM, so could see a good AM battle still, because like I said, none of them have been thrown up too high or anything like that, suggesting that we'd have to see maybe some AM drivers not having the chance to get through. And it'll be interesting seeing also Stephen Daly and anyone coming from the back that suffered from accidents and incidents in that race, to see where they can make it to.
Well, I think particularly in AM, I mentioned it going through the results, it seems like, you know, top three in AM Championship just got absolutely nowhere in that race one, and it allowed Dan Martin to gain a pretty big points delta in that race over all of them. So he's currently 5th place in AM. A lot closer after that race, I would have thought, and it's still another good opportunity for him to gain another boatload of points over the AM competitors, because, you know, it's a reverse grid, yes, but everyone else starts exactly where they finished further behind. So you've got Schlacker, you've got Daly, you've got Gregory, all starting well, not at the back, but towards the back, and Dan is of course right behind that reverse grid pole position. So if things work out well, then Dan again could, you know, get a decent amount of points from this race and make it potentially a 4-driver, 5-driver fight for the AM Championship.
Well, we do like to see it being a multiple car battle. It's always best when you have multiple people invested and close to the championship battle. I do think, like you say, Dan Martin definitely looks in a very strong position for going into the second race. Obviously, he's not had the benefit of getting further up the grid, but that can sometimes be a blessing, really. You know, there's only really Nathan Ames behind him who would be looking to come through. And the rest of them, maybe like Rabia as well, but the rest of them are going to probably be able to not overtake him at all. So another good chance to maybe not get into any incidents, get another good bit of a point haul, and extend his charge towards the front of the Anfield.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. He will be sort of kicking himself somewhat, because obviously he didn't get himself the reverse grid pole position. We saw that in the previous couple of weeks with Ben Gregory in particular, where he was the AM class winner and then got the reverse grid pole position, which put him ahead of a whole bunch of, put a whole bunch of pro drivers in between him and the closest AM driver. So he was able to gain a lot of points from that alone. Unfortunately for Dan, that's not what's happened here, but still a good opportunity to gain those points. In terms of Pro Championship, though, again, it was a masterclass from Harrison from Guinness at the very front of the field. They put 5.5 6 seconds near enough on the rest of the field throughout that entire 20-minute event, and it seemed like they were somewhat untouchable.
I mean, you look at how qualifying went, really, in the order behind the two SimRC aces, and it's like a 3.2. I'm talking in points here: a 0.326, a 0.337, and 0.357 for the three best drivers other than the top two SimRC cars. Yeah. So they just have this almost magic touch on the car, because you can see all the rest of the drivers are really, really close together, and it's just one of those things where you see these drivers be able to elevate themselves to another level. Maybe again some slipstream that could have helped them in their laps, but with them both being in the 36s at the front for when they did qualifying earlier on in our broadcast, you really wouldn't expect anything else other than a charge through getting very close to the front for the two Sim-RC drivers.
Potentially, we might be getting penalty words that Damon Owen Harris, he has more back of the grid penalties to Civ, so he potentially might not be reverse grid pole position, which would mean Dan Martin, I believe, would be able to get himself on pole position. We'll have to see what the how the situation turns out, because of course the stewards, for the reverse grids here, for the non-automatic ones, shall I say, that you get with heat racing and iRacing, the stewards have to manually build the grid basically for the next race. So that's going to be what's going on here, which is why sometimes it takes a bit of a delay between the end of the first race and the start of the second race and so on. So we'll just have to wait for that. Potentially, this is the point where we do an interview with Paul Smith as well, but he seems to be chilling up in our TeamSpeak lobby, not wanting to talk to anyone, so that seems to not be happening either. But yeah, you thumbs down there from Will Chadwick, thumbs down. But yeah, it's that was a very, very calm first race though. Was that surprisingly calm for you?
I think, thinking about the nature of the track and the nature of touring car racing, surely putting them together would equal somewhat carnage, but it didn't really end up that way. We saw a few incidents, naturally what you would get in a race. You'd be very surprised to go through a race and not get any incidents. But I think I really hope it'll change, because I do like a bit of feistiness in some races, and I'm sure the drivers, especially the ones leading the championship, would love for it to all be very calm, lovely runaway victories, and nothing dramatic to happen. But here in the commentary booth and watching along, we'd like to see a bit of drama and maybe even a safety car.
Yeah, potentially we might. But I'm having a look at the penalties that were coming into this one. So we've got ourselves. So Damon Owen Harris, he got himself excluded from qualifying, which is why he had to work his way through the order, and he's got the back of the grid for not only race 2 but also race 3. So that's a bit of a it's going to be last to first challenge for Damien Harris for the rest of the day. We've also got back of grid for Dan. I want to say Dan Blackwell. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this spreadsheet at the moment because it is relatively confusing. Yeah. But yeah, there are some other drivers that also do have back of the grid penalties to serve. So that's one thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on for these coming races.
We do have Paul Smith. He clearly saw my disapproval of not having him in the interview waiting room, and we do have him waiting. Are we ready to bring him in? Would that be? Do I have a chat to Paul?
Yeah, sure. I would never turn down a chat with Paul. Let's bring him into the commentary booth as Paul.
Hello.
How did race number 1 at Belle Isle go for you?
It was a slog, I think is the word that I would use for that. I'm not the cars ever since this new build. Whatever I do to the car, it just doesn't feel responsive to me at all. And basically, it's what you need around here is a bit of turning, a bit of responsiveness. So that's not good going so far. But yeah, it was a slog. It was avoiding a couple of accidents and doing the old 7-10 split on the start of the final lap to make the move for 25th.
Yeah, I mean, we caught it on our broadcast as well as Harrison was coming across the line to win. We also had yours in the picture-in-picture, so that was you got a little bit of airtime there, Paul.
Well, I suppose that's a bonus. Get the sponsors on.
Yeah, it's how's the racing been? Because we saw a relatively calm affair at the very front. Not sure whether that was just due to the lack of overtaking opportunities or everyone just got themselves strung out for some reason. But how was it back where you were at? Because it seemed like passing was kind of at a premium here, but not impossible.
It's not impossible, not at all. If you could get a good run through turn 2 and down that straight into turn 3, then that's your best opportunity, really. But other than that, it is just so difficult to make any moves around here. That it's a tight track, it's narrow, it's not conducive to overtaking opportunities. Basically, lap one and then any incidents are the best chances of getting any real sort of progression forward around here. Yeah, it's just, as I say, it's a slog. You've just got to get it to the end of the race, and a couple of drivers didn't do that.
Yeah, that did seem to be the case, and well, heading into race number 2, we didn't. Well, in race 1, we didn't see a big accident on the start. I don't want you to tempt fate, or don't want myself to tempt fate, but do you think it would be as clean of a start here for race 2, considering reverse grid?
I think the fact that it's a small reverse grid helps. You know, it's not the biggest reverse grids, and so you're not basically words. You're not having those quicker guys coming through some that are a lot slower. I mean, like, I was almost 3 seconds a lap slower in qualifying, so I think if there was a big reverse grid and it was myself or maybe Michael as well from a teammate, I think we'd just be sitting ducks and it'd be a case of just try and survive.
Yeah, well, I'll leave you get back to the rest of your team, back to your stream as well. Hello, the Smileable stream.
Yeah, they can't hear you. I'm muted on my stream.
That's unfortunate.
I can't believe that.
Well, I'll leave you get back to them regardless. I don't really like them.
I shall
it's
pass
fine.
on your regards, Conrad.
It's fine. You know that Smileable stream? It's awful, though. I don't want
Yeah,
it.
it's not.
I would never go
stream on
watch it.
iRacing. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, thank you, Paul. Paul Swift there from Team Mad, and of course, fellow commentator here on RaceSpotTV as well. We are currently, well, you can see it on your screen, 50 seconds away from getting our gridding procedure underway for race number 2. Let's take a quick look at the track conditions, of course, because we're starting to get into the afternoon now here in Sim. And look at that, 39 degrees on the track surface there, Will. That's not going to be helping the tyre performance towards the end of the race, especially considering how much of a punishing those front tyres get here in these cars.
Yeah, I would not like to be those front tyres. I think I'd opt out of that role today, but they don't have the choice of that at high track temps here. It always tends to be the case at American tracks. All of the American tracks always tend to get quite hot. Not going to be helpful for the driver's tyre wears, like you say. It can be very tricky, especially if they've gone from last session, which I believe was over 10 degrees colder, into this one. It can be quite a change in driving style, and therefore can lead to unwanted and unforced errors.
So, soon we'll be able to get ourselves our starting grid and see how those back-of-the-grid penalties have affected the order for this first reverse grid race of the evening. I can tell you that it is Morgan Butler getting himself on pole position in this situation. So Morgan Butler on pole. So Dan Martin still missing out on that reverse grid. So it seems like the way it works here is that the driver's just completely taken out of the equation and no one else has moved up. So Morgan Butler on pole position with Jamie Rushworth P2. Esteban Rodriguez in P3 with Miguel Freitas P4. Jake Blackwell and Sean Ledger will make an all Pure Sims row number 2. Jürgen Frank starts in 7th with Wojciech Savidovic in P8. Konstantin Stolzenberg, Ross McFarlane, Corentin Guinness and Kieran Harrison will round out the top 12. Daniel Martin, well, bearer of bad news. Sorry, it is no reverse grid pole for Daniel Martin here. But 10 seconds left to go before we get ourselves the race started. We'll cycle very, very quickly on the rest of the starting positions for race number 2 before we delve straight into the event. So race number 2 here at Belle Isle for the World Touring Car Series. We're very thankful you're able to join us for this one. Let's see if this start is as clean as the one we had in race number 1. We are racing here for race 2 at Belle Isle. It's a good start, not for Morgan Butler, but for Jamie Rushworth in P2, trying to challenge down the inside at turn number 1. Not going to get anything done through there whatsoever, though. Blackwell and Freitas are going to be the ones fighting it out. Freitas almost tags the wall coming out of turn 2. He's going to lose himself a little bit of ground here on the way down into the braking zone of turn 3. There's starting to be moves made for P1 as well. Jamie Rushworth looking around the outside of his teammate coming down into there. Esteban Rodriguez tagging the back of him slightly. It's Pure Sims friendly fire going on in terms of the top 3 at the moment. So we're riding on board with Jake Blackwell further back.
Well, something we didn't catch on stream, and you'll never believe this. So on the start, Savidovic jumps it. That then tricks Guinness to jump it, and also Ross McFarlane. So from my look at it, I would suggest that those three drivers, all high up in the championship, are going to have drive-through penalties. Ross McFarlane's was definitely the smallest jump, so he may just get away with it. But that is a disastrous start for those drivers at the head of the Pro Championship, and it means that that's going to be advantage probably Kieran Harrison and to the drivers at the front of this grid.
Very well spotted there. I didn't see that the first time of asking, but having a look back on it myself now, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is going to be an interesting replay because I don't think I've really seen anything else like this before in iRacing. Three drivers basically getting themselves a jump start here. Wow.
It's just one of those things, you're so focused on the lights, and then you see someone else going, you're like, oh my word, I need to go, and you've just gone and jumped the start. And it's something that you don't tend to see in rolling start races. And of course, the majority of races in iRacing, I would say, are rolling starts. But there we see the confirmation of the three drivers that have got those jump start penalties, and that is an absolute disaster for them. Somewhat good for Guinness seeing Ross McFarlane get one as well, but got a really bad start, and yeah, just advantage Kieran Harrison really, maybe to even go for a double here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting that penalty served, that was an interesting situation there off the start. Haven't quite seen anything like that. Of course, we've seen, that's an RD car in the wall. That's Anders Ankerson. Don't let the car roll back too far, my friend, otherwise you'll be getting a penalty. But it seems like he's got himself in a better situation, just enough room to get the car swung back in the right direction. Meanwhile, back out there on circuit, we have Harry Fox in the number 221. He's around Lee Berridge, well, behind Lee Berridge, ahead of Michael Blake and Paul Smith a little bit deeper in the train as well as those two Team Mad cars. Here's the onboard with number 18. Let's see what goes on between Fox and Berridge into the braking zone. Not all that much, as it turns out.
Well, something also to note, which is also a bit crazy, is during that drive-through penalty phase, you'd obviously expect the guy that went in at the back, Guinness, to come out last of that train. Complete opposite. I think Savidovic missed his box, and McFarlane must have had something ticked with inside the fuel or tyres black box, which means Guinness gets the advantage from the drivers that got the jump start despite going in last. So it's an absolute nightmare for the drivers at the back of this field today. And, well, it's all a race there between them from here. So Guinness again has got the advantage over McFarlane. So also kind of maybe extending his championship lead, but I imagine he's losing a lot of points to Harrison.
Yeah, a little bit of a clown fiesta down there on pit lane at the moment. Yeah, a bit weird, all having the same penalty, but the guy at the back comes out first. That's pretty crazy. But more battling going on. This is towards the very top of the, well, not very top of the order, but at least near it. Miguel Freitas, Steen Ledger. Ones that are going wheel to wheel through the first sector for the moment. We're on board with Konstantin Stolzenberg. He's definitely counting himself as part of that battle. He currently resides in 7th place at the moment. And, well, this is looking a lot closer of an affair amongst the front couple of cars than we saw in race number 1. That's just the wonder of reverse grids.
I tell you who we were ruling out a little bit. If you look there on your timing tower, you'll see Nathan Ames is up all the way into 10th position and only 1.4 seconds off the back of Jürgen Frank and that little train. So that's another interesting factor that plays into this. After getting past Lote Rabia this lap, Ames is now in the mix to potentially score some good points here, while his teammates / rivals, depending on how he looks at it, are down with all the issues they've had at the start of this race.
It's an intriguing one, isn't it? As who's that down on pit? Stephen Daly. Stephen Daly down. And then,
oh no!
Oh, what's happened to Stephen? He led the AM Championship by a point coming into today, and definitely won't be now. Potentially might be a single car incident into turn 7. At least that's what I'm seeing at the moment. But we'll get confirmation on the actual stream here. Here we go. Oh, back end out, bang into the tires.
Ah, no.
Pinballing off a couple of cars as well is not ideal.
Yeah, and returning to pit lane straight away.
Oops,
That's another incident for Scott Malcolm. Very, very close with some of I believe that to be Guinness and McFarlane, though, the nose to tail, and he comes into the pit lane. I don't imagine Stephen Daly will be booking a flight to Detroit anytime soon. I think he'll be looking to get away from this racetrack and this weekend as quickly as possible, moving on in his AM Championship, unless of a miraculous large reverse grid for the final race here tonight. But I guess we'll see that as when we come to the end of this one.
Yeah, I mean, he would have to require a full reverse grid at this rate, and that's even considering if the reverse grids, full reverse grid, even counts cars that are more than one lap down. That's the rule in some series. But yeah, it's been a very, very disappointing day for Stephen. But you know, sometimes these events do happen where things simply don't go your way, and you're put on the back foot somewhat as far as the championship is concerned. But you can take solace in the fact that he wasn't the only AM driver that's had trouble here today. Of course, we had Ben Gregory and Schlacker have issues in the first race. They're doing better here in the second race. Not ideal by any means, but they're securing a points delta on Stephen at the moment, which is not ideal for the RD6 Moscow.
Well, it's part of championships, isn't it? You know, you go through a 12-round season, and sometimes you turn up to a racetrack. It happens in real life, it happens in virtual, and it just doesn't go well for you. And it's just one of those weekends that you want to escape from. And that's definitely going to be the case for Stephen here today, unless of like we say, a miraculous final race. But I'm sure he'll move on from it quickly, and there's plenty of rounds left in the season to get back that points deficit he may now have to the lead of the championship, as we watch the 93 car of, and I need to figure out who that is very quickly, Kieran Harrison, our last race winner. Obviously on the back here of Rosenberg, and it's a bit of a trainer, isn't it? You would expect, with the pace that Harrison showed in the last race, to really have the advantage enough to make these moves to get up the field to maybe even get a second win. That's definitely what I think we were both thinking going into this race, but it doesn't seem to be quite going his way so far. You know, 8 minutes gone in this race, still stuck. We've got the Pure Sims army, it seems to be, covering the top 5 positions, and also a little bit of a gap between Miguel Freitas and the rest of the pack. But yeah, going to be interesting to see if he can make any moves, Harrison, and maybe not dead set for a win, but not far away. Yeah.
Well, at least, you know, I guess this, again, the symptoms of the track races starting to come into this one as well. Unless you have a huge delta over the car in front, you're not going to easily be able to get your way by. However, what I did see, at least at the start of that previous lap, was Jürgen Frank just opening the door wide open for Nathan Armes to head his way through. So Armes gains yet another spot up into P9. So he's continuing on his charge. Here's the battle between the two Pure Sims teammates at the front, though. That's Jamie Rushworth, Stephen Rodriguez fighting out for second place. It becomes a battle for third place as Jake Blackwell now gets himself down the inside and gets past his teammates. So yeah, it's interesting seeing the, of course, we don't usually tend to, oh, that's a big send in the background. That's going to start Stolzenberg just, well, catching Freitas napping, I think.
Yeah, and Harrison wasn't there to capitalise. There was a big move there, and Harrison had lost maybe a few tenths of a second in the opening part of the lap and couldn't capitalise. So he ruined that small mistake that he made, while the Pure Sims army decided to potentially self-explode. But it looks like they've all managed to avoid any form of contact so far, and they're all still absolutely locking out that top 5 positions.
Yeah, seems to be a bit of a Pure Sims brick wall at the front, and Stolzenberg is definitely trying his best to try and rattle their cages. Let me just tell you that, because he showed a lot of the nose to Esteban Rodriguez coming through turn 11 there, which is not typically an overtaking place, but he showed it nonetheless. So Stolzenberg, you know, he has a decent amount of pace at the moment, at least at this stage of the race, and he's not afraid to take it to these guys.
You can see the pace advantage. Obviously, the guys that are ahead of Harrison here don't have a huge pace advantage over each other, but you've seen how much Ames have caught up on that last lap, as opposed to Harrison. You know, he got let free. He got the the Ames is faster than you, went to Jurgen Frank, and he's got that gap that he's closed down. We see Harrison looking to the outside of Miguel Freitas, around the outside. Is he going to make that stick? I think he has, you know. That's a sensational move there from Kieran Harrison, and that's helped his case out for getting forward in this race.
Yeah, he has been able to make it stick, and now Freitas is trying to pull the defensive lines on Nathan Ames, who's also looking to try and quickly work his way through. It's been a bit of a charge through the field for Nathan Ames here today. He's up 8 places on the day, and we're just about getting into our second half of our race here. So Ames won't be wanting to be held up too long, because we saw him time gaining hand over fist, hand over fist, you know, up against the top guys in this race so far. And he looks down to the inside of turn number 8, which is going to be a bit of a struggle to get past. Freitas in the wall. Freitas tags the wall. Freitas tags Ames as he works his way by, and Jurgen Frank picks up that spot for free as well.
Yeah, that's one of those ones that just got a bit... It was no contact initially from Ames. It was completely fair look up the inside. Just got a little bit spooked, a little bit... probably worried a little bit too much about what Ames was doing, and ended up into the wall, which really didn't help his case out. Be interesting now to see how quickly Ames catches up to that top 7 battle it is, up at the front. And I imagine he will be able to close that gap down pretty quickly, because I don't believe the pace at the front is faster than what these Sim RC drivers have the capability of achieving.
Looking at Miguel Freitas there, as he got a decent benefit from the reverse grid, but has slowly but surely slid down the order. There's the battle further up though. Stolzenberg around the outside of Esteban Rodriguez, and well, Kieran Harrison's going to pick up that place as well. Oh, not quite clear just yet. Rodriguez trying to fight it back. It's the classic Sim RC versus Pure Sims racing action that we've come to expect from this series. Rodriguez trying to get the speed off the corner, not going to find too much success, and lining up through turn 6, not going to get the drive off the corner required. But Stolzenberg making that initial pass. He's now next on his list, further down the order, is going to be Jamie Rushworth. Actually, Rushworth's lost a lot of time on this lap, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it's been raining here today, and everyone's looking for the outside lines in order to get the positions, because it seems to me that the outside of the track is grippier than the inside. It would look like if you've been watching Kieran Harrison's race, or the race up here at the front getting some positions. Yeah, lost a lot of time that lap. Ames again closed up to the back of Esteban Rodriguez, looking to make that move. Slowly but surely, the Sim RC stranglehold is starting to enter this top 5 fight, and it'll be interesting to see whether Harrison's got enough time in order to make it up, to maybe challenge for the lead. But there's a 2.7 second gap there to the front, so definitely not clear cut for Harrison.
Yeah, Harry Fox further deeper in the pack, having his own battles back there. But yeah, this has been good to watch, not only in this mid-pack, but at the very front as well. They've decided to fight. But there's Sam Smith getting himself involved. There's a couple of Team Mad cars in that one as well. Oh, careful with the walls there, Sam. And well, battling going on behind him there as well. But that's big incident. Slacker spinning down the straight towards turn 3. No one else collected in that one, but it was Slacker wrapped around the nose of Ben Gregory, as Slacker was trying to go for trying to get to the left-hand side of the track to get past Paul Smith.
And I'm afraid to say, as much as I love Stefan Schlacker, I can't put the blame away from him there. He just looks to have tried to dive that gap a little bit too soon before he's clear, and he's ended up turning himself on the car behind. And that's another one of those high up in the AM Championships that's had an absolutely torrid day at Detroit Belle Isle today.
Yeah, and well, Slacker's going to be frustrated over that one, let me tell you that. But the thing is, no one else to blame but himself, I think, in that situation. Just mistimed it. If he left it a fraction of a second later to make that move to the left-hand side, he would have been absolutely fine, and we wouldn't even be talking about it. But since he was a fraction of a second too early doing it, that's the catastrophic result. It's those slim margins that make and break races sometimes, and it's not just in terms of lap time, it's choices.
Absolutely. We're looking towards, I believe, the battle here for 4th position. I think that's Stolzenberg to the outside.
Yeah.
Again, are we going to see another outside overtake? Looks to have overcooked it on the way in, and there's a bit of contact there. Ames looks to capitalise, decides to not go up the inside of Harrison. They still remain in the same order, and there's been some contact behind.
Race lead, actually. Race lead. Steen Ledger versus Morgan Butler. They seem to have had a little bit of an altercation here. They're fighting it out for the race lead. Morgan Butler trying to stick it himself back up underneath. It wasn't contact. It was just a solo car little issue for Morgan Butler. He's put himself back into this situation. He's going to try and go back for the race lead, though. On the brakes in towards turn 7, forcing Ledger to go to the defensive inside line. You've got to be careful here because it's so easy to outbrake yourself and find yourself in the tyre barriers on the outside.
And Ledger's gone from 3rd to 1st in the matter of, well, 4 corners at the start of this lap. And looks now, you know, he'd be your bet for your win now because, you know, Steen Ledger's got a lot of experience in these touring cars. I always remember in the first unbroadcast round of Creventic this year, he drove a dinosaur livery in the 12 Hours of Spa, and it was absolutely beautiful, and he managed to win that race. Shout out to Steve Ledger because I remember him participating in that one. But yeah, very experienced in these touring cars, and you'd certainly put your money on him now with 2 laps or 3 laps left to go.
We need more dinosaur liveries in sim racing is what we need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the team you're a part of is has a relation to them. But as we see this leading pack head their way down into turn 3, this has been one of your main overtaking opportunities here today, and you see Harrison actually looking down the inside of Stolzenberg there just for a brief moment. Not close enough to maintain the overlap. Whoa, Blackhall! Oh, into the concrete on the outside and causes a big stack up behind.
It was a really aggressive defence there by Ames as well. In the meantime of that, he really aggressively defended against Esteban Rodriguez behind. And that's another mistake for one of the Pure Sim development car, I believe. No, actually, no. But another mistake for Pure Sims that's very costly there for the championship points, and that's not really what you wanted to see. I believe Guinness is on the back of this pack that we're just watching, you know, all the way up from his lap 1 issues, or getting close at least. I think about 1.7 back. Yeah, there he is, actually.
He's actually relatively far down the order. So Guinness must have had a couple of troubles, and well, I mean, he did have a couple of troubles because he had the jump start, didn't he?
But saying that he's made quite a bit of progress from the point at which he was in comparison to Ross McFarlane, who's not too far behind, but it's definitely, and Svidovic as well. So, you know, we knew he came out of the pit lane first, but he's made a good amount of time up there. As the 97 seems to have got some form of suspension damage, and he's just trying to limp it home for the rest of this race. Is Jake Blackhall? Yeah, I think he's going to have to come into the pit lane because it just is too damaged, that car, and that's really a shame to see. Yeah,
the suspension geometry, the wheel damage can be sensitive on these cars at times, and well, I mean, it wasn't the most sensitive of incidents, was it, for Blackhall? He really clattered that wall. Here's Ross McFarlane, again, trying to improve decisions after his, well, it's a bit of a recovery drive for him because of those, the jump starts that happened at the front as, Sam Smith just slinging it around the outside of Michael Blake there. That was a great bit of opportunistic driving, knowing that, well, it seems like Ross McFarlane's going to be easily past, cars ahead. Why not follow through on his tyre tracks? And that's exactly what Sam Smith has done. So good heads-up driving there. We are inside our final minute of the event, though, and the cars at the very front, they'll be making their way through the final sector. So it looks like it will be 1 to go after this lap.
Dean Ledger, like we said, you know, he's pulled that advantage up to 2 seconds now. Not to curse him, but he looks to be easing to that win ever since he made those 3 third place into first just a few laps ago, and he's got one more circuit of this very tricky, bumpy street circuit to go. As we see Michael Blake in the wall. I do not know what's happened there, but I've actually no idea where that is on track, unless you know, Connery. Ah, yes. Oh.
Yeah. That whiff. And on the live pictures now, Michael Blake's still having trouble spinning that car back around. It was Ben Gregory, actually. Oh. more championship leaders getting involved in things that they perhaps shouldn't. Here's Konstantin Stolzenberg. Wow, that's an attempt to defend from Kieran Harrison, but not successful in that sense there. But Harrison up one more spot. That's just a couple of more points in his bank account now. He can go try and press on, try and chase those two Pure Sims cars ahead on this final lap. It's unlikely that he'll be able to do anything about them, but we'll have to see. Number 93 has been very, very quick. Riding up with number 36, though, that's Nathan Armes, who has been a hard charger in this second race. He started 17th and now is knocking on the door of a top 5, but no opportunity into turn 7, which, well, I guess is now the final of your overtaking opportunities on this lap, or at least the obvious ones. So these guys heading their way through the middle sector now. Still no opportunities for any of these drivers to try and improve their positions. There's a relatively slow speed turn 11 that potentially, if you get the exit right, you can get yourself a run, but it doesn't seem like any of them have been able to. It's a whole group of cars from second and back here in this second race at Belle Isle in the World Touring Car Series. Here's Steen Ledger, though, getting that pass done towards the end on his teammates and taking the race win here for race 2 of the race meeting number 7 at Belle Isle. Fantastic stuff for him. And, well, Daniel Martin, another AM-class win.
Yeah, like we said, in a very good position to make his AM-class win today for the second time. And, yeah, that race was really interesting, wasn't it? You know, as we see, I mean, Damien Harris, has he had an issue though? Has he run out of fuel or something? Because he's lost a place there at the line to Guinness, and to me it looks like a lack of fuel or some form of damage. I do think maybe a running out of fuel there towards the line. Thankfully, though, only lost one position, but still, you know, up from 34th to 15th, 19 places gain. I'm sure Damien Harris wouldn't be too sad with that one. But yeah, Steen Ledger taking the pro win. Dan Martin taking the AM win. As we see, will we get a full reverse grid Connery? I know we've both got our fingers crossed and our toes. It's not another
past.
Small one.
It might have the momentum to get to 21.
Yeah,
21 is going to be our reverse grid. Sorry, we're not biased, but like we've seen so many sole reverse grids so far this season. It's actually quite nice to get one that's not in the teens. But
do you want to guess who 21st was? Do you want to guess?
It's Paul Smith, isn't it?
It's Paul Smith.
Paul Smith.
It's Paul Smith.
Here are the unofficial race results from race 2. Steen Ledger P1 with Morgan Butler P2, Jamie Rushworth P3. Great day for Pure Sims. Well, they haven't been able to consolidate those points in any single team, given it's 3 separate teams that occupy the podium spots. Kieran Harrison P4 with Konstantin Stolzenberg with P5. Nathan Armes P6 with Esteban Rodriguez P7. Jürgen Frank P8 with Loic Rabier and Miguel Freitas rounding out the top 10. Daniel Martin in P11 as your AM-class winner for race 2, doing the repeat of race 1. Jason Landry in P12 with Nick Clibbons in P13. Quentin Guinness, after a jump start, finishes in 14th place with Damien Owen Harris in 15th. Harry Fox 16th with Lee Berridge. Ross McFarlane in 18th place, another jump start with Sam Smith in 19th. Wojciech Swidovic, another jump start in P20. And Paul Smith in 21st is your reverse grid pole position sitter for race 3. He's going to be elated about that and no doubt dreading it on his stream as well. Benjamin Gregory P22 with John Roberts in P23. Anders Ankerson in P24 with Jake Blackwell 25th. Neil Stevenson P26 with Marcel Fritsch, Michael Blake, Sean Gardner, Scott Malcolm rounding out the top 30. Then we've got Stefan Schlacker P31. Not a great day for Stefan. Pete Newman in 32nd, and well, even worse day for Stephen Daly down in P33 here at the end of race 2. Rob Sutherland rounds out the 34 car finishing results. So here we go then. We are, well, slowly but steadily going to get ourselves into our third race of the day here. Well, 21 car reverse grids. Again, it's nice for it not to be in the teens for once.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting going into this final race. That's, I believe, almost over 2/3 of the grid being reversed. And as long as there's no, I believe there is going to be a penalty for Damien Harris again. Does that mean that it'll go to 20th?
Potentially. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Because it was a little bit confusing considering the situation there. But either way, this works out quite handily in the favour of not only Savidovic, because he'll start on the front row as it stands, but also Ross McFarlane. He'll be starting on the second row.
Yes.
So that's going to be a massive opportunity for Ross McFarlane to gain a boatload of points from this third race, because yes, he was 91 points behind in the Pro Championship coming into today, but he hasn't had the most fantastic of results so far. So this will be his chance to try and recover something from this race weekend. Well, not weekend, because it's not the weekend, but it's it's Thursday. This race night, evening.
Well, you would imagine that, after Guinness obviously had those problems, you would have hoped, being Ross McFarlane, he would have hoped to have capitalised on that. He wasn't able to, with also getting the jump start at the start of this race. Maybe an opportunity now that he's guaranteed to at least start quite high up now in this second race, even with whatever penalties go the way to any other people. Guinness isn't far behind though, but as we saw in that race, Harrison, 12th to 4th, made a lot of those places up at the start, and as we got into those trains, despite the pace advantage that he had over the other drivers, it looked still very, very hard to actually make that overtake, and the toe didn't seem to be that powerful. So it really will be interesting now going into this final race to see whether Guinness can get up to McFarlane and beat him for the third time today to effectively, I believe, extend his advantage, unless that is it's gone to Harrison, that second place in the championship. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But this is going to be an intriguing affair, everyone. 21 cars are reversed here for race 3, and of course we get a little bit of a change of time of day in the sim, getting towards the evening, so that must cool things down a little bit, so that the grip is just that little bit better out there on circuit. But this if we were going to have a chaotic race start, this will be the one.
Yeah, well, you'd like to think, but do we want to see that? I don't know. It just depends what happens. I'm sure if it is Paul on pole, we'll be rooting for him to get the best start possible.
We have to remain completely unbiased.
Completely unbiased. Definitely no. I want Paul to lose, actually. Oh, that's technically biased against him. But I'm sure we'll see what would happen. It would be very, very hard to keep the pro drivers behind with the pace advantage Paul was mentioning. Pace deficit was mentioning earlier. But cooling down. Does that mean we're going to get a bit of a night race? Is that going to be the case? Evening race. Okay, evening. So cool track. Definitely a big difference from this race. That we saw temperatures almost at 40 degrees, which is really quite hard to deal with for these drivers. And again, adds to that changing factor of driving style, because when the track temp change, sometimes your setup can be completely different to drive, and that's maybe a factor they've had to take into the way that they've built these setups and the way that they've gone about tonight's racing and testing. So I'm sure the drivers have it all under control, and I'm sure we're going to get a very, very good third race this evening.
Server is indeed up, so the drivers will be getting themselves into that very shortly, and it's going to be a pretty intriguing one, like I said, because of the reverse grid, but also drivers even more out of position than they would be otherwise, even with the reverse grid. So that's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. Again, I just sort of have to recap the situation that we saw with the AM drivers in that second race again, because it seems like the top guys in that championship just haven't been able to get along well with this track whatsoever. And it's actually quite surprising for me to see, because usually, obviously, due to they were pretty consistent. That's the reason why they are towards the top in their particular championships. But it seems like they've all simultaneously had the worst day of racing in their season so far.
Yeah, it has been absolute chaos for the leaders of the AM Championship. We've seen some, unlucky incidents and just really bad days, really, from Stephen Daly and Stefan Schlacker as well. I think there's is it Sean Gardner as well, who's high up in the championship, that's had some issues. We've seen issues from pretty much everyone at the top of AM standings, and except from Dan Martin, who is going to be making a lot of progress, especially with an 11th place finish in that race. You know, wasn't too far behind as well. You know, it's only 7.9 seconds behind the race lead. You know, really showing his pace. Maybe making a case for him being moved up into pro for next season or something. But I'm sure he'll like to keep there at the minute, seeing as he's doing well tonight around this Belle circuit. But only going to help his championship. And yeah, another real interesting factor going into this final race as we have a few AM drivers that are going to be quite high up, and maybe they'll be able to capitalise.
I mean, Paul was talking about in his interview with us in between race 1 and race 2 that he was about 3 seconds a lap off the race lead, at least in qualifying trim. So it was, it's potentially might be a relatively big bottleneck at the front of this field. If they're all able to get away well, of course, that is not a guarantee. Again, we've had a couple of safety cars already this season. We had one at Watkins Glen, we had one at Phillip Island as well, both off of race start incidents. So that's always something that looms over the drivers' heads. And when you consider a safety car in this race, which is so short, 20 minutes, that's going to basically cut down your entire racing time by about 6 to 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's something that the people that are starting further back, so for example, Steen Ledger, who is actually third in the championship going into this round, who's obviously got some good points in that race, he won't want that to happen because he's going to have to make up quite a lot of places in this final race in order to keep those points rolling, keep that championship challenge going. And when you do have one of those safety car periods, especially when it's run by iRacing system, it can take quite a while to get through that, and therefore leading to a very short race. So I'm sure the guys that are high up in the championship, starting from a lower position, won't want to see that. But then again, the guys that are high up in the AM class who've got those good positions really may be wanting to see that, because less time, it's easier to defend your position. Probably the most obvious thing anyone's ever said, but I'm sure it goes against and for people depending on where you are in the championship.
Here's a question for you, Will. Does it count as a night race when iRacing turns on, well, makes the headlights more obvious in sim?
What is the definition of night? There's a better question.
I had to, yeah. I mean, it's a certain number of degrees the sun goes below the horizon, like officially.
Right.
So,
okay.
I don't know whether this qualifies.
And, no, I'm sure we can we'll call it a dusk race or a twilight race, is what they might say in Formula One. But you can see the beautiful sunset over the Detroit streets here at Belle Isle, and
I don't think anyone has ever called Detroit beautiful.
Oh, come on, don't be mean to Detroit. I'm sure it looks beautiful in the setting. As you can see, very cold temperatures, very low wind, and also quite low humidity as well.
Yeah, all factors in, of course. But yeah, those cool track temperatures definitely going to be a big respite for these drivers. Basically, almost 20 degrees cooler than they were in the second race. So it's a welcome rest for the tyres of the cars. We've got about 3 minutes before we head ourselves into race number 3 here today. Currently, of course, without back grid shenanigans and penalties and some such, currently we're looking at Paul Smith being on the reverse grid pole position, which should be a nerve-wracking occasion for him, no doubt. It's always, whenever I competed in series with reverse grids, once I got the good end of it, started, front row, second row, I was always pretty nervous for that.
Oh, believe you me, we did top 6 reverse in Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain earlier this year, and when you have people like Kevin Ellis Jr., Sebastian Job, Graham Carroll starting behind you, it's not something it's not something you look forward to it because it's a great position, and being in like the Porsche Cup car, it's quite hard to overtake. But believe you me, there are some massive names that you are potentially worried about making sure you can keep them behind you. But yeah, it depends how you take it. It's a very good attribute to be able to take it in your stride and not worry about it too much, because it will improve in your performance. And if you don't really think about it too much, you could see certain drivers rise to the occasion.
Indeed you do. And well, all the races that I've been on the front row for reverse grid I've been wrecked out of, so I haven't found too much success as far as reverse grids are concerned. But hopefully the drivers out here that have gotten the good end of it hoping for a haul of points out of today. But for those drivers that got the bad end of it, of course, we saw the Pure Sims gaggle at the very front that have now been filed back into, starting 21st, 20th, 19th. It's going to be a big task for them to work their way through. But like I said, good opportunity for Ross McFarlane to get a good points haul here, because he really needs that points delta now to try and keep himself in this championship, even if it is possible to at this stage. Yes, it's mathematically possible, but it's going to be a big ask to really do anything about Guinness's lead.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? They're going to have to get their heads down and see what they can do in this final race of the day. I want Paul to win. That's all I'm going to say. I believe in Paul. That's my only prediction for this race, is that Paul's going to win. And if Paul wins, I can't wait to interview.
That's Will's opinion as a member of Team Fordzilla, not as a member of RaceSpotTV. Just putting that out there. I don't have any excuses. I don't have any other associations outside of RaceSpot. So there we go. 30 seconds to go then before we get ourselves our grading procedure underway. And we'll have to see what this third race holds, because it has the potential for the most excitement out of the 3 races that we've had so far. Race number 1 was, I'm pretty sure people won't mind me saying, it was relatively processional at the very front of the field. At least it was very calm, very measured. Race 2, a little bit more exciting, with drivers out of position working their way through. Race number 3 with a 21-car reverse grid. This could be a completely different animal, everyone. So checkered flag out there in practice, and we'll get ourselves the starting grid then for race number 3 coming up in just a moment. We'll have to get a confirmation of who is pole position. Seems like Paul Smith has been confirmed as the reverse grid pole position sitter. It's Wojciech Savidovic on that front row as well. Sam Smith will start 3rd with Ross McFarlane in 4th. Lee Berridge will start 5th with Harry Fox in 6th. Quentin Guinness will start in 7th with Nick Clibbins in P8. Jason Landry P9 with Daniel Martin P10. Miguel Freitas 11th and Lloyd Grabia in 12th. Then we got Jürgen Frank, Esteban Rodriguez, Nathan Almes, Stolzenberg, Harrison, Rushworth running up the top 18 cars. And then to the back end of the reverse grid, we've got Morgan Butler, Steen Ledger, and then we've got Benjamin Gregory who will start in 21st. Then the rest of the runners will be coming up on your screen right now. The rest of the starters, as drivers are getting themselves primed and ready for the action. Let's see what this race start holds then. Savidovic on the front row as well, towards the inside of Paul Smith. Got Sam Smith and Ross McFarlane on row number 2 as well. Good opportunity for Ross McFarlane. Good opportunity potentially for Quentin Guinness, who doesn't have an armada of cars ahead of him that he has to try and get past. No jump starts this time around, everyone, as we get the green flag here for our final race of the evening at Belle Isle. Paul Smith has gotten away well. Savidovic slots in behind him. It's a fight for P3 though, now P4, as Sam Smith has not quite got the best of starts. As Savidovic got himself out of shape at the very front of the field there. Paul might have as well. What has happened here? There's been a bit of contact. Oh no, there's going to be a big crash here. Down on the straight, down towards turn number 3. This is going to be absolutely massive, and is that
Guinness? I think Guinness was collected in that. I'm not sure. No, it wasn't. And that is a safety car, like you said. So Smith got some... Oh, and there's a massive crash there on the straight. Smith got some suspension damage. Tried to keep the car going. Slowed his speed a bit. Tried to keep the car going. Couldn't quite hold it. And all of a sudden, just had a snap and came across the front of the field. Collected one of the Sim RC cars, which was Jürgen Frank. So not Guinness. So Guinness got away lightly there. But yeah, Steen Ledger, one of the ones caught up in that incident. And now, like you said, bit of a prediction from you. We've got a safety car here to end the night off.
Yeah, and well, the suspension damage for Paul Smith came as the fact that, well, because of the fact that Savidovic just completely drilled into his left rear, coming out of turn number 2. And well, it caused suspension damage for Savidovic. It caused a huge amount of suspension damage for Paul Smith, who was unable to keep a hold of that car in the state that it was. And well, the rest is history. From that point forwards, it was Sam Smith that was the first one to be tagged around, and there's not a lot of room to go. You've got concrete walls on both sides, not a lot of racing room. You just have to pick a lane and pray.
Yeah, and like you say, when it's a start of one of these races and it can be so close between all the cars, it does end up having these incidents. So here we see the start. Paul Smith got away well. Svidovic behind, you know, trying to make or get a run. Smith a little bit narrow into the corner, probably tries to push a little bit hard, gets on the brakes, catches them out, gets obviously that suspension damage, trying to control the car, and then it just goes on him. It's a bit weird. It's one of these... The suspension damage that he's got looks to be quite irregular, and it's almost when he hits a bump, it just goes on him. It's very hard from a position to know what exactly is going on in your car, and really unlucky to come across the front of the pack. But they all have fast repairs, and potentially, if they've been able to get back round and not been lapped by the leading car and also the iRacing pace car, they will be able to rejoin this race from the back or wherever the line is.
Someone tell the safety car driver to put his headlights on. It looks kind of out of place.
That's a good point. Yeah, he needs to see where he's going. There is quite a good bit of lighting from the cars behind. I think that maybe he's taken advantage of all the cars behind him which have got their lights on. But, you know, not quite dark yet, so you couldn't give him a ticket for driving with his lights off. But, you know, we're getting to that stage.
I was going to say, a reminder of the fact that on my car you have to sometimes do a bit of percussive treatment to the front right wing, front right headlight, because sometimes, I don't know, it's a dodgy electrical connection and you have to bang it to try and get it to work. Here's the onboard with Daniel Martin coming onto that straight down to turn 3, and you can see slowing it up. Nicely navigated for Daniel Martin.
I mean, Daniel Martin's day has been absolutely fantastic today. Not only has he avoided that straight line crash through some amazing driving, to be honest, really spatially aware, picked his opportunities, and he's gapped really well, not getting any incidents. And now that's put him all the way up. Well, started in 10th, he's now in 9th, so he's not lost any places from the start. Here we've got Jürgen Frank, who I thought was originally Guinness, but not quite. So we know that Jürgen gets in on this incident. Let's see how close it was. A little bit of contact to the number 70 behind. Going down here, obviously can't really see anything. Sees the car on the left. Tries to... Oh, nowhere to go, really, because he had the car on the inside. And tries to brake last minute when he realises he's got nowhere to go. And that's all she wrote, really.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes you get, caught in those situations where there's no way really that you could have picked to get through on that, apart from just slamming on the anchors. You know, that's the only way that you'll give yourself enough time to be able to make a bit of a better decision. Here's LaGravia. Oh,
just a little bit of contact. Yeah, it's one of those ones where you see it happening, but there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. But the good news is for those drivers, they have been able to get their fast repairs. I do believe that most drivers are on the lead lap. So Damien Harris, who's had a repair, he's on the lead lap. I thought Jürgen Frank had got going again, but it looks like he's just disconnected, so maybe not quite able to repair the car. As you can see, Paul just running it in too hot. And yeah, you can see that the suspension damage, it looks like he's alright, and then all of a sudden, yeah,
it just goes, doesn't it?
It just goes. It's one of those ones. It's almost intermittent, but obviously it's not. It's just, you think you've got it straight, and you know he's not doing anything wrong with holding the wheel straight, and all of a sudden just goes on him. He tries to catch him because of how light these cars are and how they're set up on the rear end. As soon as you do get a little invitation for them to go around, it's very easy for that to happen. We've got another replay from the Pearson SimLab car of Esteban Rodriguez going to the inside of the Team PGZ car there. There's a little bit of carnage in front of him, and just kind of, wow, through absolutely everybody. And, not quite, a little bit checked up into the turn number 3, but that's a very good start for him.
I think that's one of the rare cases that nailing the throttle is actually the better option, because he had a big train of cars behind him in relatively close proximity. If you slammed on there, then you'd definitely get contact from behind. So yeah, I mean, I don't blame him for nailing the throttle there. I know some people will say, it's always the best option. It is always the best option, but there are some esoteric little situations where you're like, oh, I need to go for a gap and I need to go for it quickly, and there's going to be no other option otherwise. But yeah, sometimes you do have to get lucky with it as well. But
yeah.
But yeah, I'm certainly not complaining about that situation. But
Yeah.
if there was any contact with anyone else, then obviously he'd be in the wrong. So it's kind of, it's bad or not depending on circumstance,
Yes, I know what you mean, but obviously it worked out for him very well. I'm sure Jurgen Frank wouldn't like me to say this, but the reason why he's left the server and is out the race is after he'd come out and gone past turn 4 and into turn 5, he actually made a further mistake all by himself and put it in the wall. So used up his fast repair and then damaged the car, and that's knocked him out of the race entirely, because obviously once you've used that fast repair, you don't have any other spare. So that's really unfortunate and just quite an easy mistake to make there, just into turn number 5, and I'm sure he'll be ruining that going into future rounds.
Oh, pace car down and in. Field under the control of Ross McFarlane, who was able to gain a couple of spots out of that. So back towards the front he goes, and, well, his task will be to pull away. Here we go, down in towards turn number 1 now. Single file restart, of course. So, but, well, it seems like these guys in no rush to get a double file through the first couple of corners. Dan Martin getting swamped a little bit here off of the restart. Kieran Harrison squeezing by, and now we've got a couple of Pure Sims cars that are beep beep heading their way through. Esteban Rodriguez, there's Morgan Butler as well, also involved. So a couple of positions lost from our, I'll basically call it our AM superstar of the day, as he falls back through the order. Nick Clebens, though, he maintains the race lead. Well, not maintains the race lead. Nam Berridge is actually race leader now. He's second place overall.
Yeah, doing a fantastic job. Still holding that second place, but he has got Guinness now behind him, so probably the least person you would want behind you in one of these races. But yeah, like you say, Dan Martin just playing it as cool. He doesn't want to get into any unnecessary collisions and sort of ruin his points haul. Obviously, it's still a very good points haul from what he's managed to do today, but just sitting back, letting the faster drivers come through. Very smart decision, and he'll get a chance, I'm sure, to get some of his fellow AM drivers later on in this race.
For some drivers, though, this safety car hasn't really worked out in their favour, namely the ones that got the bad ends of the reverse grids. Kind of still a little stuck in a sense. So we've got Butler towards the bottom, well, just outside the top 10. We've got Kieran Harrison down there as well. They would have loved that opportunity in the first 10 minutes of this race to try and work their way through the field. Now they only have 10 minutes to go, so the time pressure is a little bit higher for these guys. Here comes Quentin Guinness, though, for P2, side by side into 10-1, and, well, Berridge will give that one up slightly. He'll try and come back at him through the middle of the corner, though, not going to be successful in doing so. So Guinness up to P2, giving chase now to Ross McFarlane further down the road. This one's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and that's what's going to converge at the end of this race. Obviously, we saw Ross, I think, 4 tenths off in quali at the start of our session today, potentially gained some pace towards the end of this meeting, and it's going to be interesting looking towards the end, seeing if I'm sure Guinness will close the gap, but will he be able to make the overtake like he wasn't able to do on his teammate earlier in race number 1?
Yeah, so we potentially might have a battle on for P1, depending if Guinness can reel that gap in any significant way in the final half the race that we have to go. Granted, we've had half the race on the safety car, basically. But here we go, on the way down into turn 7 for these guys. I just spotted a car ahead that might have had a little bit of a problem getting themselves into there. That was Lee Berridge, but he was able to not make contact with the wall, so he keeps himself in this race. But look how much, how stacked up these guys are heading their way through there. Not a lot of room to breathe whatsoever.
No, and that's what happens in these street circuits. It's hard to overtake. You've got Harrison, Soldenberg, all looking to try and make up places here. And like you said, playing some of those back sections, it's really, really hard to make a move. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We've even got Esteban Rodriguez, who made that amazing start or amazing get through that little pack, who's just made his move into 10th. He'll be joining that battle soon as well, I'm no doubt.
Nick Clebens trying to hold on to positions here, not successful in that instance. Rodriguez in the Pure Sims car able to squeeze through. And, well, a couple more bits of side-by-side going on as well. Harry Fox and Stolzenberg. You've got Savinovic and Berridge as well going on towards the front couple of spots. So all drivers trying to work their way back through.
Yeah, Butler also giving way to Ledger there as well, in front of Dan Martin, who's keeping with them well. Still now holding that 15th position. Ames really one of the sufferers from the start of this race, along with Ledger, you know, only up 3 positions from his starting place over halfway into this race. Of course, massively affected by the safety car at the start. And yeah, like you say, it's still Lee Berridge though, who is leader of the AMS, now in 4th place, but still holding his own against some of the pros up there at the front.
Yeah, it's you know, very nice to see, and he's well, not making life easy for them, but also not making it so difficult. He's definitely trying to hold his own up there. Same with Nick Clibbens in this situation as well, attempting to be swamped. Oh, that's not going to work out in his favour though, losing the spot to Armes.
Yeah, very decisive move there from Armes. Used the overspeed, used the advantage that he knew Clibbens was going to take that wider line into the corner. Used the overspeed, got down the inside. Nice little pass up into 11th place, chasing the top 10. So moves Armes up, you know, from his 15th place starting spot in this race. Guinness has absolutely, really caught McFarlane. I've only just noticed that on our timing tower. It's only 0.3 of a second now, going into the last 7 minutes of this race. It's turning more and more night by the second, Connery. So I'm sure that we're getting more towards that night race like we were initially anticipating.
Yeah. It's you know, it soon will be pretty hard to see the liveries if they don't have a car right behind them illuminating the car, which can cause issues. Nathan Armes though sending one down the inside of Harry Fox, gets the spot complete as well. So Armes continuing on his charge through the fields. He started in 15th place and now he's up to 10th. There's Lograbia on pit lane.
Wonder what's happened there. Let's have a little replay. Oh, yeah. Oh, and he's hit the wall as well. Just missed that tyre barrier, caught the outside grass, and yeah, that's going to be a lot of suspension damage, and returns straight to pit lane immediately after he's figured out that that's the case. 888 is all over the back of the number 1 car here. We are likely to see, hopefully, we see a titanic battle for this final race victory of the night around the streets of Belle Isle in Detroit, America.
Not the first time we would have seen these two fight this season or even last season as well. They definitely like to have a bit of a ding-dong battle if they get themselves the opportunity to, and they will have the opportunity to in the final 6 minutes that we have to run. Guinness has been incredible over the course of this race meeting. He's had a whole bunch of pace. He's been able to catch this, what was about 0.8 of a second gap up to Ross McFarlane. Quite comfortably, he sends it down the inside. Wow, what a forceful move from Guinness. Here comes Ross McFarlane trying to come back at him. Coming through turn number 4, though. It gets so close between the two, but now McFarlane's been put on the outside for the next left-hander. He climbs up all over the curb, but can't do anything about correcting Guinness, who sends it from a couple of car lengths back.
I was not expecting. I'd love to see a replay of that if we can do, because I was not expecting that whatsoever. But the gap was, you know, it was close, but we'd seen plenty of cars following that closely before without being able to make a move. Absolutely sent it on the brakes and got it stopped with seemingly hardly any problem whatsoever, and now got a second lead. So that's a crazy good move.
Look at this.
Wow.
In no right should he make that stick from that far back.
I really don't know how he's got that stop so well. That's an unbelievable braking manoeuvre there to get the lead of the race and already pull a second on McFarlane. Wow.
We need to get a scrutineering check on those brakes, please.
I think he's gone and swapped in some extra high grip brake pads for this final race here today. Wow, that was an amazing manoeuvre. And, well, not to be the one that would call the race, but with 4 minutes to go, it's looking more and more towards Guinness now, especially after he's been able to open up that gap once he'd made the move.
Yeah, it's incredible. No one's going to stop Guinness apart from Guinness himself at the moment. As we see Miguel Freitas going for a move potentially further back through the fields. Of course, we've got Sam Smith here we're looking at the moment. That's 9th in AM class, but spells going on elsewhere as well. As we are delved in towards the depths of night here. Yeah, you're definitely right about the night race here, Will. as Berridge and Stolzenberg going wheel to wheel. As this is going to get too close to Comfort coming in all the way through turn 6. You got to be careful about that concrete on the outside. Berridge will also put in it and loses a bit of ground now on the way down this back straight. Armes potentially getting the opportunity to have a shot. Here comes Rodriguez as well. Oh, will it be 3 wide down in towards turn number 7? Surely this doesn't work. Armes has been able to get himself through. Rodriguez looking to try and make progress around the outside. Now becomes the inside as Berridge gets sent wide, your AM class leader.
And that's one of the problems. I think Berridge was managing it really, really well, but when you're getting up with those pros that are all desperate to keep on to the other car, fighting, it can sometimes cause you to lose a lot of time, and that's sent him from having what would be almost a 4-second advantage over Dan Martin to what looks to be now 0.4 of a second in the space of 1 lap, and that is not what Berridge would like to be seeing if he wants to stop Martin's charge of 3 for 3 here tonight.
Well, Berridge has been put down in 12th place there. We've got Harry Fox has classed as an AM in session. He's not an AM in the graphics though. Not sure what that is about. Kieran Harrison and Miguel Freitas, P5, P6, continuing to duke it out. Here's Berridge and Butler on their way through the right-hander and continuing on their flights as Berridge seems to be involved in everything here today, and he's kept Butler behind for now.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point with Fox, because obviously we can't see that on our timing tower, but within the session it does say that he is an AM.
It says it says he's an AM in the standings.
Okay, so we'll take him as an AM for now. So your AM leader is now Harry Fox, making that move last lap on Lee Berridge when he had all those pros coming through in that little tap wide at turn number 8 or something, I think. And obviously Dan Martin in third behind, with that little bit of Morgan Butler in the middle as your meat in your AM sandwich.
Yeah, indeed. And sorry, I just took a moment to process that.
Yeah, sorry.
It's a factual description. There we go. As maybe a discrepancy between our results list and the entry list that we got. That has put Fox as a pro for this race, but an AM in the standings. We'll have to figure that one out at some point. But sometimes it's just an admin error. A lot of the time. But here's the confirmation of the final lap. Saw Barney the flagman waving the white flag. And, it's been a relatively quick affair. Ooh, who's this slow? Marcel Fritsch, number 99.
Seems to have had some issue, but seems to have got going again. Not sure what happened there.
He just pulled to the sides down the pit straight.
I was thinking that maybe...
And he's slow now.
I don't know what that is. A pedal issue? Potentially
Well, he's got a meatball flag, apparently, in session.
Right, so... What that is though? That's what I'm trying to think of, because the car's obviously still running. We look towards our race leader, who surprisingly after getting that gap hasn't actually lost a bit of time to Ross McFarlane behind, but looks to be all under control going into the final tight and twisty section of the Belle Isle circuit. Hasn't won tonight at all, but has charged through the field from 7th, getting the advantage of obviously having a safety car a little bit to his advantage, slowing maybe others' progress behind. Coming through the final 2 turns here, and I'll hand it over to you, Connor, if you want to take it.
Oh, well, something might have gone on. Freitas and Stolzenberg. Stolzenberg is off just as Guinness was going to start to head himself towards the line. There seems to have been an incident deeper in the pack, but checkered flag is out there. Quentin Guinness takes the race win here at Belle Isle for the 3rd race of the evening, adding one more to his already impressive tally. But what happened back there with Freitas, with Stolzenberg, with potentially Armes as well? Armes was able to pick himself up the positions off of that. He wasn't really involved in it, I don't think. But here's the replay, potentially. Down towards the inside, fighting it out, Stolzenberg.
Ooh. Oh, it's one of those, isn't it? It's like both cars hit on a similar location on the car, and it's just gone around, and they've both not been able to save it, and it's been really hard, especially for Stolzenberg, to rejoin the circuit safely, which he did, but that's not what you want to be seeing on the last lap, fighting for those final positions.
Absolutely not. It does mean that, well, that's what Ames wanted to see, though. He got himself,
for sure.
2 spots promoted up into 6th place, and that's going to be a very good finish for Nathan Ames, all things considered. But it is Corentin Guinness from DKC by SimRC that takes the race win. Then we got Pure Sims Esports' Ross McFarlane. 2nd place is still a very, very respectable finish. Wojciech Savidovic on the podium here for Semper Racing. We've got Jason Landry in 4th, Kieran Harrison 5th, Nathan Ames 6th, Esteban Rodriguez, Steen Ledger, Miguel Freitas, and Harry Fox round out the top 10. Harry Fox, of course, if we're going by standings rather than entry list, he is your AM class winner, but Lee Berridge is your AM class winner if you don't consider that. There we go. Morgan Butler in P12 with Damon Owen Harris in P13, Daniel Martin P14 with Nick Clemens P15, Stefan Schlacker P16, Constantin Stolzenberg in P17, Neil Stevenson, Michael Blake, Benjamin Gregory round out the top 20. And then further back, you got John Roberts with Sam Smith, Scott Malkin and Rob Sutherland round out the top 24. Then you've got Jake Blackhall, Marcel Fitch, Jamie Rushworth, and Roy Grabia down to 28. Then 29th, we've got Sean Gardner, Paul Smith, what could have been pole position, then contact with Savidovic through turn 1, or rather turn 2, and, well, causing a big safety car incident at the very start of this race. Anders Ankersen and Jürgen Frank were also non-finishers. So we've got our 3 races in the books then. Round number 7, race meeting number 7 at Belle Isle for the World Touring Car Series is, well, the unofficial results have come through, but of course there will be post-race penalties and situations that the stewards will have to look at. But Will, that was your first World Touring Car Series broadcast. How was it?
I really enjoyed it, especially getting to commentate with you, Connery. It was really good, and I think we saw some really good racing, especially in the latter races. And again, another good round for Guinness. You know, you think that stuff goes against him with that jump start, and even still, I would predict, unless any post-race penalties, like you mentioned, that he's extended his championship lead again after this 7th round. We don't think we have anyone for an interview, so I think unless we have someone join in late, we're ready to finish this one off.
Yeah, everyone seems to have gotten used to us doing it in Discord, and in fact I see people waiting in the Discord rather than in the TeamSpeak, so maybe we do need to mention to them that we have things going on over here on TeamSpeak. But next round we will be heading to Silverstone, and I was there recently, Will, as you know.
Yes.
Not on the actual circuit itself, but on the Porsche handling circuit. That's a story for another time. But a similarly short circuit, the international layout of Silverstone, which I think would be the lesser used of the 2 short circuits that you can do there, at least in terms of international competition.
I think obviously you have the Grand Prix layout, which is used for any big British GT rounds or Formula 1, obviously. International was planned to be used for the British Touring Car round in the 2020 season, but obviously due to the rescheduling of the calendar for COVID that we had, it wasn't there. But I drove around International. It's quite a nice circuit, very smooth. There's a few little sections that I'm sure the drivers will be looking to optimise, and obviously you got the wonderful wing building, which is a lovely, nice little facility that I'm sure the drivers will enjoy the hospitality of.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to hop ourselves into the Discord, and we are going to interview these drivers, as I will just pull in. We'll have to just wait for that. But I'm just going to pull in Benjamin Gregory. No, but not Benjamin Gregory, excuse me. We'll pull in Daniel Martin, as we mentioned that we were that he was our AM superstar here today, and I'll bring him into the commentary booth. Daniel, how was it out there today? It seemed like you got yourself a good couple of results for these past 3 races.
Hi guys, yeah, it was good fun. I really enjoyed that. It wasn't as carnage as what I thought it was going to be. So some good points. Finished on the podium every race. 2 wins in the 3rd. I'll take that.
Yeah, it does seem like that you were definitely capitalizing on the troubles of the AM leaders coming into today, because of course we had one of your teammates, Stephen Daly, have mega problems over the course of the 3 races. We had Gregory had a few problems. Schlacker had problems as well. So it seems like you have gained a bit of a points delta compared to them in the championship. So do you expect to have climbed up that far?
To be honest, I think the first couple of rounds were a bit of hit and miss. I had the pace in the first race, but then I seemed to get unlucky in the second and third races. That's just racecraft, that's learning the league, isn't it? You're up against some really strong competition, and you make one mistake or someone makes a mistake in front of you, it's highly likely you're going to have an accident. And, I just thought, I spoke to my team, spoke to Steve. Steve's just got to keep it consistent. He's been doing so well. We're really pushing for the Pro-Am team champs, because we've got a good opportunity there. And it's just about being safe and secure, isn't it? It's keeping your distance, letting the pros go by when it's safe to do so if they're quicker than you, and just picking your battles, really.
It does seem like it does seem like the keeping yourself out of trouble is the name of the game, especially here at a circuit like this one, where there's not a lot of room to maneuver, and there's always the high chance that the pro driver or the fast driver behind you is going to get a little bit irate in terms of being held up. But we've got Silverstone International for our next round of competition. Are you feeling confident about that?
I don't know, to be honest. It's like I said, it's such a high level of competition. I literally take it race by race. It's just one of those leagues, isn't it? Survival. See how we get on. We've got a good team around us, so we work together as a team. So, it's all good from here. Hopefully, Bathurst I haven't even driven, so that's going to be fun. We'll see how it goes, won't we?
I'm going to start a little bit of a debate here. Do you prefer Silverstone International or National?
International. I'm going to say international.
Ooh. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Apparently that's controversial from the controversial ooh from Will.
To be fair, I'd much rather have the GP, and I think that would be mega. We've just had Spa. We just had Spa on the fix in the Open Series, haven't we? Week 1. I didn't do that, but if they can do it there, we could have done the GP here for sure.
Yeah, well, maybe a suggestion.
Proposal.
Maybe a suggestion for next season there. But thank you very much for joining us, Daniel, and I'll leave you get back to your team.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, that was Daniel Martin there. Fantastic results in the AM class here today. We will potentially get the opportunity. Well, who do you want to speak to next, Will?
Thinking we should speak to Lee Barrage, obviously with that decent result in that final race. Do you think? What do you think, Connery?
Yep, I think that would be a pretty good option too. As we'll bring Lee up into the commentary with Lee. That third race got very, very interesting for you very, very quickly. Getting promoted up the order as a result of the reverse grids and having a swarm of pro drivers trying to come through on you. Just take me through that.
Firstly, hello guys. My pulse rate was massively through the roof in that last race. I spent the first and second race trying to get myself up there, just missed out race 1 for the race 2 reverse, and then got some luck. Then the safety car was thrown, and I thought, right, I know Ross is in front of me, I'm not going to fight him. I could see who I needed to watch behind me, and Harry Fox was my margin. I needed to try and keep in front of him. And do you know what? It was working. I think my pace was okay for the majority of that race. But it's such a narrow track. And it's a great track, but it's so narrow you can't overtake. So unfortunately what it does is it invites everybody to get really super aggressive and go full Jason Plato mode and chuck it up the inside where there's not really any space. And I don't know if you saw, but it unfolded for me. I got a little punt on the rear left and it pushed me out, tapped the barrier, and then I just got freight trained. And I think I moved from 5th down to 11th in 2 corners. But you know what? Harry Fox, got to give him credit. Great racing all night. He was super aggressive. I think he's beat me all 3 races tonight, just through sheer racecraft. So hats off to him. But it was a good race. I enjoyed it. But I just need to calm down a little bit after those few stressful laps.
Yeah, it does seem like it was a bit of a nerve-wracking affair, especially given the big incident that we saw at the start of race 3. That happened basically directly ahead of you when Paul Smith had that little bit of contact with Savidovic, and due to a massive amount of suspension damage, he lost control in front of the entire field. You got through on that okay, obviously, as you still lived to tell the tale, but was that a bit of a heart-in-mouth moment for you?
A little bit. I saw them off to the left. I think Paul went right. and Wodge was to the left. And it's a shame because I got a cracking start and sort of level pegging with Ross. And I saw he had to sort of get out of it ever so slightly on the exit of turn 2, and I thought I might have a run. And there was a little bit of me thinking, go for a bit of Am Glory. Let's go in front of him. But yeah, then the flag was thrown, and after that it was just like, let's play the sensible game. There's an Am win on offer here, and that was what I was playing. It didn't work out.
Yeah, close but no cigar, but second place in Am is still a fantastic result for you. I'll leave you get back to to get on with what else you're doing in the rest of your evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Bridesmaid again.
All right. Yeah, of course. But that was, of course, Lee Berridge finishing second place in Am here today in race number 3. Will, do you want to take an interview very quickly?
Yeah. Let's go for it. Who do you want to pull in?
Let's pull in
I'll let
Ben
you choose
Gregory.
this time. Yeah, let's pull in Ben Gregory.
There we go. Ben Gregory standing by with Will Chadwick.
Hi, Ben. How are you doing? Obviously, that last race didn't go amazingly for you, but how did you find the track there tonight? Because it's a really challenging circuit, is Belle Isle, and I imagine in the touring cars with the amount of understeer that you can get, it's a really challenging circuit to attack.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, I was actually really enjoying it, surprisingly, but definitely a few rainbow paint marks on the wall after tonight, just pushing out of corners a bit. But yeah, I was enjoying a lot of it. I was actually looking forward to this as well. So.
Yeah, well, it looked like everyone was enjoying themselves out there. One thing we did see that at times it looked quite hard to make the passing manoeuvre. Did you find that to be the case throughout the 3 races tonight, or did you actually find it quite easy to pass? Did you have a certain technique or a certain corner that you particularly liked?
Oh yeah, it was definitely difficult to pass, especially because it's quite hard to get a run into the braking zones, but I didn't really have a specific spot, really. It was just sort of where I could make the room without compromising time, I think, was the best way of doing it.
Yeah, obviously you don't want to lose as much time. You want to lose as little time as possible when making manoeuvres, but it did look like a lot of our drivers decided to go into turn number 3 today. It was my first time watching this series tonight, and commentating on it, I should say. And I just want to wish you best of luck for the rest of the AM Championship. How are you feeling going into Silverstone International next time out?
I'm now on top, so very nervous. It's been a while since I've been out of top of a championship. Honestly, now at this point, I'm just going to go, okay, cool, I've got a bit of a gap. I can now be a bit more patient, especially with Silverstone being a bit wider. I can potentially be a bit more patient around people as well. Don't need to be as aggressive at fighting the two, Stefan and Steve, as hard as they could do. So fingers crossed. There you go, feeling the same way. But yeah, a little nervous, but excited at the same time.
Well, we can always turn nerves into positive energy. I always found that to work for myself. Obviously, you mentioned Stephen and Stefan having a hard round tonight, so that leaves you with a little bit of advantage. And I think the angle that you're attacking it from with the pros and making sure you're keeping your nose clean is a really good way to go about it. And I wish you the best of luck for the remainder of the championship.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Well, there we go. That was Ben Gregory with Will, and that will be all that we have time for here today. It's been a fantastic round here at Belle Isle. It's been chaotic in all the right ways. We've had basically everything. We've had passes, we had battles, we had safety cars. So all is well and good here in the World Touring Car Series. But next time, we'll be heading to the Silverstone International Circuit. We'll be there for it. We're hoping you will be as well. Here on RaceSpotTV, we'll have to say thank you and bye-bye.